The 18 Strong Podcast, episode number 352 with Jake Hutt, golf instructor and co-founder of DryveBox. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the 18 Strong Podcast, where we are here to help you build a stronger game. And this week, I'm very excited to have our buddy Jake Hutt from Jake Hutt Golf on the show again. Jake is not only a prolific content creator and golf instructor that you've probably seen on Instagram or YouTube or one of the social media platforms, but also the co-founder of DryveBox, which is basically a portable driving range equipped with Trackman, all the different stats that you're looking at, being able to either work with a pro on remote location at a golf course, do events, and DryveBox is kind of taking off all over the place. They're starting to franchise these things. So in this episode, we talk with Jake, first of all, just the trials and tribulations of starting a new company and what they've gone through with DryveBox, the different iterations of the actual mobile unit that they're using and how they're utilizing it in different ways, and learning every day from their people from their franchisees, from their instructors on how to utilize these things and what people are loving about them. Then we talk about just Jake's content creation. What's it like a day in the life as Jake Hutt? How does he put all of this content together? Where do the ideas come from? What's the process that he uses? And then we talk obviously a little bit about golf, and he works with a ton of golfers still. So he's giving instructions, and we talk about his teaching style and his philosophies, and really go into a lot of different ideas on, how do you get better at golf? What are some of the things that he sees, and what are the simplest things, the one or two things that he sees that can make the biggest difference in your game? So we're going to get into all that with Jake Hutt right after this. Our partners over at Linksole have been providing us with the best apparel for both on the course and off the course, from polos to t-shirts like the one I have on right now. Everything that they have is meant to be worn from the golf course to wherever you're going next, whether that be casual, whether that be to the beach. There's all different options over there. So go to 18strong.com/Linksole. You'll get 20% off of anything in your cart over on Linksole's website. So again, 18strong.com/Linksole for our favorite brand of apparel for anything on the golf course and off. Now let's get to this week's interview. All right, man. So we got you hanging out in the warehouse. You're in DryveBox. You said you're Lincoln Park, San Fran. So
yes, sir.
Tell us all about what's happened since you were on the show with DryveBox, because it seems like it's just kind of exploded since the last time you and I chatted.
Oh man, how long ago was that?
I meant to look it up. It's
was
been
that like 2
2
years
years,
ago?
I think. I mean, you guys were just starting.
Okay, so we maybe had like one box.
It was just the one, I believe.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, that was our prototype. So like at that time, what we were doing is we were just experimenting with it. So we'd hop in it and we'd literally we'd go give lessons in San Francisco. We'd pull up to your house. We'd park on the side of the street in bike lanes. People would pop out of their house. We'd do a lesson and we'd bring it down to Stanford and experiment with it with students just to see how, if people liked it, if people were having fun, and, 10 billion different learnings from it. What can we make better? What can we, the screen in the back was still wires everywhere. And there was a crappy hitting area. It was a super prototype. The ceilings were too low and we'd stuck Walmart sightings on the side and all that. And so now I guess fast forward, whatever, we'll say 2 years, we've got 12 boxes. We just hit go on franchising 2 days ago. So we're out, selling these things. I haven't even really made the announcement yet. We've had just a big list of people that are interested. So we've kind of just been calling the people who've been trying to get their hands on one of these for the last 2 years. We are in, what do we have? 4 boxes in California. We've got a couple in Utah, Salt Lake City. A golf course out there is leasing one. Tiger Woods' new course, where he just broke ground, I guess. I don't even know how long ago, but we have a box up there where you can go, and essentially Trackman has that course all mapped out so you can go out and play it.
Oh, wow.
Just, there. And then launching Vero Beach in Florida, Texas, and I think by the end of the year we should have 5 more
Wow.
And then, it's just, it's a franchise now. And so if you're interested, give us a shout.
And I mean, do you guys have any region restrictions? Or are you guys kind of going all across the U.S., kind of whoever contacts
Mm.
you? And then, all right.
Yep. Yeah. It just essentially depends on how many people are in your surrounding area. The more people, the more expensive it is.
Gotcha. Sweet. So, first of all, how do people, they just email you? They just go on Instagram, send you a direct message? What's the best way?
Yeah, so if you go to drivebox.com, there is a franchise section. It's super easy to navigate with all the contact information. You essentially just shoot us an email with the information on it, and we contact you and go from there.
So who would you say has been kind of your biggest market? Like certain type of golfer? Is it golf courses? Are you still doing a lot of parties and things like that? Like what's been your most successful thing, and really even your most enjoyable piece of it?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't know what everywhere is a little different. So like, I mean, we've done everything from, your birthday party to a lesson on the side of the road, which we don't do that anymore. We still do the birthday parties and whatnot. But we've also we were at the Genesis Invitational last 2 years. We'll
Oh,
be
I
there
saw
this year
that. Yeah.
again. Hole 14, they do a big build out around the Players Lounge, which is just one of the coolest places to watch golf. It's free. You got all the Genesis cars all lined up, beautiful stage, and um, they got the big TV on the side. You go in closest to the pin. What hole is it? Hole like 16 is behind you. Like we were this last year, I think Tiger did play in it this last year. He was on the green behind us, and a kid made a hole in one with him in the background. It was pretty cool. And it's a cool experience. So like we were at the Women's U.S. Open, I think 3 years ago. So like you got people, hitting golf shots and they're watching golf. It's like what's the one thing you want to do when you're watching a golf stream? You want to hit balls, right? So that's been fun to like just being able to walk around these tournaments and have the box there has just been awesome. And then just seeing how people like our first partner, Brandon, who's a PGA member in South Carolina. He was the first person we gave a box to. He was like our guinea pig. And so he's been teaching lessons out of that and, bringing it to bars, and everyone does it a little different. We've got a guy in Visalia in Central California who, smaller town, but he knows everyone. And so he's got all these birthday parties lined up, and he does club fitting. So he'll bring it over to your house, and, he'll fix all your clubs, fix your lie angles, regrip all your, everything while you're in there hitting balls, having fun with your buddies. And then, Florida, they do it a little different. Houston, Texas, the market's a little different. So everyone's just kind of still finding their way, figuring out how to sell and what's fun and what works and what doesn't. So we're still very young, very new, but it's really, really cool giving someone, I guess, having a product, having something like that, messing around with it, and then expanding, and then seeing how other people, what they come up with, and lots of stuff that we'd never thought of that they're doing. They're killing it. And so it's super cool.
Yeah, super versatile, and being able to learn from the people that are using it. So what, obviously new business, right? Startup. What have been some of the trials, tribulations? Obviously you said that you started with the first box and you guys have made a ton of adjustments. I mean, I think it was just originally just a regular 18-wheel tractor trailer bed, right?
It's always been custom. So we had to custom design the space, the slide outs. And that's our IP essentially is that, we've got solar panels, solar power on top. So that was something that definitely didn't come with the original one. We found this battery guy who, does all the crazy installation. It gets made at the factory, then it gets sent to the guy who does the battery, and then it gets shipped off to the people. And we've had some issues, with, everything, right? Everything, things have gone right, things have gone wrong. Every box is a new, it's always a new learning experience. There's always something that either that goes wrong that didn't previously go wrong. We've had like the manufacturers at the first spot we were getting it made from, they didn't tighten the lug nuts on one of the wheels, so the wheel went flying off 2 hours into like a 2-week long road trip. So we had to navigate that. That was fun. Literally just freeway, tire gone. So that was fun. We're stuck on the side of the road for a couple hours. everything was fine. Everything was okay. It definitely, we were fine. The trailer was fine, but yeah, that was just like we don't work with them anymore for a reason.
Right. Right. And then you were saying you're actually at HQ, which HQ,
HQ, yeah.
and you've got a couple of hitting bays there. So do you give a lot of lessons there? Is that primarily where you're teaching, or are you at a course as well?
Yeah, so no course. I was at Stanford for almost 7 years, and then COVID hit, and then I co-founded this company, essentially a deal. The founder of the company, he needed a golf guy, and so he took a lesson from me, and he was going around, taking lessons from people all over, looking for a co-founder, kind of like an undercover type deal, you know what I mean? And so apparently I gave him a good enough lesson. He pitched me the idea halfway through, and we've just been running with it since. So I'm here in San Francisco once a week at Lincoln Park, and then 2 days a week I'm down in Palo Alto, where we have a box that essentially just lives as a single hitting bay. So the concept with that is you get a box, and you go out, you do all these events with it, and when it's not being used, you can park it, and we've got essentially you book, and then you get a code, and you can essentially use that bay 24/7. It's like, if you go up, show up with your clubs, type it in, and it's your hitting bay. You got the music, you got the lights, you got the Trackman, and I'm also working on content, essentially, kind of like trying to make it kind of like a Peloton, where you've got, because I teach with data, like Trackman data, path, face, what makes the ball fly. Just most people, like a lot of young professionals, they come in, they're practicing once a week, playing once a week at most. So we're not messing around with what their swing looks like. It's like oftentimes just a couple subtle tweaks, a couple subtle changes, and I'm just like, you don't need me. You just need the data. Once you understand it, it may take a few sessions, and then here's a whole boatload of content that, here, if you need to change low point, if you need to change face, if you need to change path, if you want to bring your spin rate down, if you want to bring your loft down, your ball flight down, you can look at it when you're in the box, you can bring it home with you, and you go and you just, mess around with it. So that's been really cool. Just having that there. And that's probably 10 minutes away from where I live. So easy for me there. I'm about an hour south of San Francisco. And so, yeah, we're, still trying to make that product, the self-operational product, awesome and great, so that when it's not being used, people still, you can sell this a full membership.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, that's what so many people, I know here in St. Louis, I mean, if you don't belong to a club, you're then going to the local muni or the driving range, but you don't have access to the kind of stats and statistics, all the data, all the Trackman stuff. So to have a box just sitting where you can schedule your session, you can go code it in, then you can just go pop you don't even need earbuds because you guys have the music, and you can go kind of work on your own stuff. That's pretty sweet.
Yeah, and you're just in another world, right? There's no one else. You don't need to hear anyone else hitting beside you. You don't need to, check in anywhere. You're just like, you can park the thing anywhere, and it's such a cool vibe, because it literally could be in a parking lot. It could be, again, everyone kind of figures out where that place is. Like the rent is here. It's a little bit more expensive than most places, but all you need is a pretty tiny plot of land. Like you're paying, with your brick and mortar spot, you're paying obviously a lot to break ground, to, bang walls through and, build and all that. That's a lot of overhead. With this thing, it's just, $500 a month, and park it there, and then you're done. You want to move it around and, sell whatever, and you can do that too. We do have golf courses that lease it as well. So like some will lease it for 3 months, 5 months, depending on how long the winter is, or sometimes it's the summer. Pull up, have it, it's in, and then it's out, and you don't have to build anything. So we're learning constantly. We're at a number of different golf courses in I think Arizona, Utah. So it's we're all over. There's a lot going on. It's fun.
That's sweet. So talking about content, obviously, you are a prolific content creator, and I'm always so amazed when I watch your stuff, the editing that you do, the music, you do all of it. I would love to know, what does a day in the life, and you actually did a little bit of a video on this recently, but day in the life of Jake Hutt. What does it look
Yep.
like? You're running a business, you're teaching some lessons, you're working on working on Drivebox, you're working on your content. Do you have it pretty structured out and laid out the way you posed it in the video? Is it that regimented?
Yeah, I mean it's always changing. So like, I mean, I have a calendar with everything on it that needs to get done for that day. But every day is just so different. Like we're taking essentially doing a road show coming up. So I'll be on the road for 2 weeks. And so, we've got, that's like, if I'm out launching a market, like I was just in Vero Beach most recently, which is, flying out there, running around with the box, filming everything for marketing purposes for them, teaching them how to use it, just getting to know them. And then, so there's kind of like life on the road and there's life at home where, yeah, it's a mixture of teaching. I mean, so I guess like trying to think like it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I'm teaching, right? And then I'll wake up and I'll, edit as much as I can. I work with a lot of different brands. So I owe different brands, different videos, and I'm always trying to integrate whatever brand I'm working with in the most organic way possible. It's like hate ads, and everyone hates ads. So that's been a really fun challenge for me is learning to partner with these brands and make actual enjoyable fun content that isn't, that's still me, but also they're happy with. And that's definitely forced me to learn to make different stuff. Like I did one like where I was at a restaurant. My buddy just opened up his third restaurant in San Francisco. So it's like, I wanted to bring the camera out there and just see, film a bunch of B-roll and see if I can tell a story, see what that looks like. So I'm always trying to learn and just do different stuff and just see how it turns out, and learn from it. I like my favorite content to make still is definitely kind of the swing tip rap song.
Turn your head left, shoulders to the right, and the backswing. Oh my God, you can't be serious. Turn your head right, shoulders to the left, in the downswing. I thought I was supposed to keep my head still.
Which is, evolved over time as well, with just, more cuts, more arrows, more text, more moving text. So it's just always, everything is always just trying to just one up the thing from before. So that also means it takes longer, it takes more time. So I've got to, make sure that I do have the enough time to create whatever that is, and also have time for everything else. So it's really every day. Yeah. It's a mixture of a ton of editing, and I'm, also working on outsourcing that. So I'm planning on having kind of a like, I don't know if I don't want to say competition, but I'm going to throw out something like, here is the song, here is a, a drive full of whatever, 20 gigs of footage, put it together and let's see who's is the best, so that I can, maybe do a little bit more. So that's kind of like the next step for me, which is also kind of terrifying, is like, starting to delegate a little bit more so that I don't have to do all of it. But I do love the editing process. It is so fun sitting down and like, just how do I take all of this and turn it into some cohesive thing? It's it's a lot of fun. Then you got Drivebox, which is just, I do a lot of the content, a lot of the videoing for that. We've got lots of people much smarter than myself who are either lawyers or, went to business school. So I'm learning a ton from them as well on all the calls and all the things they're talking about. So much of it's over my head, but it's really cool to be a part of it. And I mean, it's like going to business school for me. This is like my business school. And then I get to be the golf guy and, and help however I can. So
I was wondering if you had anybody helping you yet with the video and editing stuff, because I know that's kind of what you love doing, making the music, and that's the stuff that I am just terrible with, and it takes me forever to do. And that's why we've got Bill behind the camera here and that kind of stuff. It's like, but I would imagine that that's the thing that you really enjoy so much that you don't want to give too much of that away, but you have so much on your plate at the same time.
I mean, if I knew it would turn out exactly the same, like absolutely, I'd have someone else do it all day. Just, I never know how it's going to turn out. Like when I'm looking at it, I'm like, I don't know. So I'm also really excited to see, like, I might send it in and like everyone else might do a better job than I do. I'm like, great, cool. Like all I have to do now is film and send it to someone else. And now that frees up a lot of time on my end. So that'll be fun. Yeah. I, as much as I do love it, it is so insanely time consuming editing. And like, it is just, I still do it all on my laptop. I don't have a big fancy, that may be the next purchase that I need to make before I go blind. But yeah, like the deeper I've gotten into it, it takes so much time, so much crazy focus. So you get like lost in that world and the computer screen, just like, oh my God, is this ever going to end?
So I think we could officially say, and you may not believe this yourself, but the rest of us looking from the outside in would say that you're kind of officially a celebrity type in the golf world these days. You've just kind of amassed huge followings on Instagram. I was just on your YouTube, about to hit, I think, 100,000 subscribers over there. When you started making some of these videos, did you ever think that you'd be working with companies like Callaway, Strixon, all these different big brands, starting a company like DryveBox? When you were just, giving lessons, making some cool videos, did you ever think it would be where you are right now?
No, not in a million years. I did have, like when I was kind of starting it all out, I was reading a lot, and I was reading a lot of, I was really interested in like the habits of what really successful people were doing. And so like Tools of the Titans is a really cool book, like a lot of like Tim Ferriss and kind of all of those. That's kind of like where I started. I was like, whatever I do, I'm going to go, I'm always full in 10,000% committed to whatever that is. And, in this case, it was like, all right, let's, golf. But I got a bunch of these books, and I kind of studied like the habits of, I was just curious, like what do successful people do? Like, and I don't know if I necessarily tried to copy them, but I did just, I think it just exposed to me how hard people work and how much time they spend. Like, it's like your whole life. Like you wake up early in the morning and you just work, and you just go and you 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 go. And so that, like, to me, it was just like, okay, like I'm going to do this. Like I kind of have an understanding of how hard it's going to be. And I knew it had to, I had to love it, because if you don't love it, you're just not going to put the time into it that's necessary. And so like I loved reading about golf. I loved everything about, like, when I was going to school, I didn't love going to class. When I was in college, I went, but it's like I wasn't obsessed with it. And so golf I knew that I had that obsession, similar to hockey. Like when I grew up playing hockey, I was completely obsessed with, and I'd go break into the rink at 10 o'clock and practice. And like, that's like, I knew what the healthy obsession, I knew what that was like. And so I was like, I kind of found that in golf. And then I just, just like a day by day thing. Like I have so much fun doing whatever it is today, like making like the first videos I made. I just had so much fun doing it. And it was just kind of a get through the day and just do it again and just do it again and do it again and just work really hard at it and see what happens. The book that really kind of changed how I look at things was Atomic Habits, James Clear. And I remember reading that when I was early on in my doing my book work for PGA. And you gave the ice cube analogy, right? Where it's like you just take an ice cube, you put it on the table, and it just sits there, and you look at it, doesn't change, and eventually it starts to melt. You don't really know when things are going to start to happen, but you just put the work in and you just wait for it. And that's kind of like how I looked at everything, which is like, if I just work as hard as humanly possible, like at some point the ice cube's going to melt. I'm having so much fun anyways. I don't really care if it, whatever happens. And so it's really, it's crazy kind of looking back. And I mean, I appreciate the sentiment so much. I mean, it means a lot. Like it's something you don't ever think about. I think in the back of your head, like you try to put in the work that you think it'll take to have some sort of success, whatever that is. And then along the way, just trying to learn as many skills as possible. I've always just been fascinated with just the learning process itself. Just what does learning look like, and not being afraid of like being terrible at something, like learning this golf thing. Like, grew up playing golf, but I started playing really, really poorly after starting to, try all these different things, make a swing look a certain way. And like, after being really good, at a sport like hockey where you're not the best, but you're definitely elite, sucking at something is like, I think that was probably the best thing that could ever happen to me, was like sucking at something and then having to kind of come out on the other side and stick through it, and learn something. Like as a, I was kind of, I guess I was 25 when I started kind of this journey. I wasn't particularly young, but I didn't really care. I was like, okay, if I'm okay with feeling like a complete failure and looking like an idiot, like I'm not afraid of anything. So it's been fun. Yeah, it's been a crazy journey.
That's exactly what I hear so many people say that are successful in whatever. Like, you know what? I just kind of put my head down, did the thing, did the work, and just, kind of trusted the process. And all of a sudden I come up for air and I'm like, oh my gosh, can't believe I'm here,
Right.
And I mean, like professional golfers, all the collegiate golfers, it's like that's a lesson just to take it into the world of golf and performance. It's like sometimes we just have to do that and have the faith and have the trust that I'm doing the right thing. I got to get up early. I got to do my workouts. I got to go hit the range. I got to go see Jake. Got to take my lesson, and just put in the work, and then eventually reap the benefits.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a terrifying concept when you're in it. Like, it's almost just like, for me, I just wanted to mask that, like that feeling of, what am I doing, with just, all right, I'm just going to spend all the extra time I can working so that I don't have time to forget about how terrifying this all is.
With you, when you're putting together your content ideas, is it like, do you sit down, like have structured time to do that? Or is some of it like you're working with a student and you kind of figure out, oh, they need help with this, or I keep seeing this, maybe I'll make a little piece of content on that?
Oh man. I mean, I'm always thinking about, just different concepts. Like what's really fun for me, fascinating for me, is taking kind of some of the more complex concepts and trying to, dumb it down and make it simple. And then turn it into a song and then make the video around that. But it's the inspiration comes just from absolutely everywhere. Whether it's a student or whether I'm driving or, I'm reading, Rick Rubin just came out with a book. I don't know how old it is, but it's so awesome. He's like the pioneer of like the OG producer of like hip hop. He created
like the Beastie Boys, right? And
a
bunch of those
and like
guys.
so his book, it's so fascinating how he talks about like all these, essentially it's just all about like, I don't even know what the book's called. It's called like the creative something or whatever, but it's like how he looks at it. So I'm kind of like learning and like in almost like reverse engineering like different ideas I've had, or like, oh, like I've experienced that before. It's just so cool. He talks like last night I was reading an excerpt. He was like letting the subconscious mind kind of come out. So he's saying like when you're driving, sometimes some of the best ideas will come out because your conscious mind is on the road. So it kind of allows your subconscious to like work in this, mysterious way. So I think it's just like the ideas come everywhere. I think traveling, staying in a hotel when you're by yourself, driving or sitting by yourself or whatever, like it's all, there's so many different great places that ideas come from. So I'm always constantly thinking and thinking about what the next thing is going to be, or drawing inspiration from something here or there, or wherever I might be.
Well, to your point of trying to make things just simplified from complex, topics, and you do such a good job. And I find myself like just scrolling through your videos and like, first of all, just kind of smiling, laughing at some of your raps and, the tunes and everything. And it's like, but then like watching your content, it's like you really do like break down some of the things so easily, and you take different perspectives, like sometimes you're in your socks on your hardwood floors and showing, different movements and different forces. And it's like, so many people learn so many different ways, and I think that's why sometimes people will go to different instructors, because they'll hear something a little different and it will click with them. And what I love about your stuff is you don't do it all the same way. You mix it up all the time, and sometimes you'll say something, I'm like, oh, that's the feeling. Or literally, I was just talking to a golf pro here who was giving lessons in our gym, and we were talking about how he asked me how the shaft of the club flexes, and I was talking about how myself and the client he was working with, we're talking about, well, it bends like this, and he's like, no, it bends up and down. And then you had a video talking about, not because he was telling this guy, like, don't ever just set your club on the ground, because then you're getting really upright. And then literally I'm scrolling through, I'm like, I sent it to both of those guys. I'm like, oh my gosh, Jay just had a video about this. So you give it such a different perspective, and you tackle so many different things that I think is really, really cool.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. First off. I like, there's so many interesting things, like concepts and, I can't remember where I came up with the inspiration for that one, but I think I saw it somewhere and I'm like, oh my God, like that makes so much sense. And then, yeah, just trying to make a video that like just engages people and makes it, I was talking to someone who, to your, like, the connecting the dots, to me, that's like, if I can be the guy that like just makes it just so simple, stupid, like what I've found, the feedback I've gotten is like, you could watch 7 different videos and everyone's kind of trying to say the same thing. And then like my video is just so stupid and simple. Like they're like, oh, like now it all makes sense. Like I love being, the video that kind of helps just simplify. It's like, I want a 5-year-old to be able to watch it and be able to hum along to it, but also have him or her be able to understand it. And so I think for like the older you get, we want to intellectualize everything, right. Which it's fun. It's fun to think about things. It's fun to really dive deep into something. We know it's not any good for performance. It's terrible for performance. The more you know, almost the worse, right? So it's like, that's how my brain thinks. Like I love just like, I'm reading the science of the golf. So I guess I've been reading it now for like 3 years, trying to make sense of it. But like all the, the kinetics of applying force to the handle of a club and like angular momentum and like what, you apply a force, you've got to torque it through and like all, kind of, so that's why I'm definitely not the best golfer, but it's fun. That's what allows me, I'm passionate about the teaching aspect of it. I'm not trying to play a tour. But I think it allows that the simplicity to kind of shine through, which initially when I was starting with everything, I couldn't believe how hard it was to portray something simple. Like I remember hitting record, like, the first year I started doing this, head to the back of the range, press record with no thought really. It was like, okay, I'm just going to like talk about some golf stuff and shouldn't be that hard. I should be able to say something relatively simple. And I would, just mumbling over my words for months. And I was like, wow, I really need to, figure out how to communicate. So I started kind of thinking about concepts and I'd be in the shower kind of going over, like, how can I erase every word from what I'm about to say that doesn't need to be there and essentially turn it into like a short little poem so that when I get there and I hit record, like I know exactly what I'm going to say. And now it's kind of like there's, instead of that being a 30-second little sentence, now it's a song. And so the song is already recorded. So now I go out and I hit record and I've got to look like a complete idiot on the golf course. I'm about to go out today. Just like, oh God, like where is the quietest place on the course where no one can see me, just look like a complete clown. What I might do today actually is set up a phone and record myself recording just to show everyone how big of an idiot I look like. But
that's, I was just thinking that's a great idea. Have you ever seen that account? It's called Influencers in the Wild. And it's basically just
yes, I have. It's incredible.
It's the account of other people posting videos. So yeah, it'd almost be like somebody posting a video of this is what Jake really looks like before it's all produced and looks really cool. That would be hilarious.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. Oh God,
I love it. I'm glad that was spawned right here. This is fantastic. Yeah, I mean, with your songs, it's like sometimes you'll give a tip or whatever, and then it just kind of rings in your head too. So when you're standing on the driving range, you remember it because it's catchy and it's quick and simple, and that's been very helpful sometimes.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, like and I think every golfer has shared this sentiment, is like the second you step on the golf course, like that environment is just like it's pure stress. It may not feel like it, but there's not a whole lot of space up here left for like any conscious thought or any thought period, right? So like on the range, even like, you have your notes and you're scrolling. It's like, okay, you're taking your time. You got your headphones in, you're chilling, whatever. All right, let's elbow in, whatever. I'm going to try and twist the feet or whatever. Like when you get on the golf course, it's like, it may be like there's room for 3 words. right? And like those words have to have some meaning to it. So like having some sort of a, even a little melody or even I think a visual in your head of whatever mixed with a word and a melody seems to be maybe a little bit more memorable and maybe able to recall it a little bit easier with less effort to recall whatever that is. So yeah, I mean, it's hard for me to know. So it's always fun hearing other people and how they experience it. Cause I just live in my head, those songs are everywhere. Yeah. So anyways, that's, it's cool to hear. Yeah.
I love it. My son, I told him that, I was like, yeah, have you ever heard of Jake Hutt? He's like, yeah. I'm like, oh, I'm having him on the show. He's like, no way. I'm like, yeah, I actually had him on a couple years ago. If you kind of paid attention to what your dad does at all. But no, he didn't.
What's his name?
Sam.
Sam, what's up, Sam? Tell him I say what's up.
I will for sure. Let's take a second to thank our partners over at Live Pure. Live Pure is the #1 hydration drink that you need on the golf course, especially when it's getting hot out there, you're sweating, you're playing lots of golf. You need something more than just water in your water bottle. So Dr. Troy Van Beesen and his team formulated one of the greatest hydration products out there that is no sugar added, all natural ingredients, and the top quality PGA Tour pros, champions that you know, are all using this on the golf course. So go over to livepure.com. That's livepur.com. Check out all their products. You can use the code 18strong and let Live Pure champion your day. So when you're dealing with your students and everything, you've obviously seen a bunch of golfers. You still work with golfers all the time. I'm sure that they help drive a lot of this thought process for the content. What are some of the biggest things that you see golfers making? What are some of the biggest mistakes, like that most amateurs could benefit from? A couple little tips on this or that.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest one I'd say in the last, like teaching with Trackman over the last really 3 years, like I spent the first 6 years with no tech. Shockingly at Stanford, really nothing there. You're on a grass range, right? And you're trying to figure it out. What most people don't understand is just how simple, like if you want the ball to end up in the middle, there's a bunch of different ways to do it, right? So it's like, do you know where your path, do you know where your path is? Do you know if you're swinging out to in or in to out? And do you know where your face is in relation to that? Like those two things, like if you understand path and face, like you can get the ball to go where you want it really fast without having to change anything crazy about your swing. Most people's path is very consistent. So like every lesson I give, for the most part, you come in, give me 10, 15 swings with your 6-iron after you're warm. And we're going to go through we're going to go through your path. And the number is always wildly consistent, within a couple degrees, but you're either swinging out to in to out, or you're pretty neutral. And that's going to dictate your ball flight and what you need to feel with your face. So, I'll put the numbers up on the screen. It's like, all right, you're swinging a little bit out to in. And everyone's like, oh, no. It's like, no, it's fine. We just want you to play a little pull fade, right? So you don't need to think about your backswing. You don't need to think about your downswing. What we need to figure out is what you need to feel to get your face in the right place, right? So you want your face halfway in between the target and the path. Here are the numbers. Let's mess around with it. So like for me, I always just overdo everything. Like over close the face, under close the face. If you can do both those things, then you can find the middle. It may take you 20 shots or 30 shots, but ultimately, like that's what we're looking at. I'm looking at path, face, low point, where the club bottoms out with an iron. You want the club to bottom out after, driver before, and then impact location, right? And so teaching students the power of intent. Like everyone, I was doing online lessons for a long time, and then I don't really do those anymore because without, like, if you don't have an understanding of impact, then you get the most beautiful swing in the world. Like your ball's still not going to go where you want, right? Like, so for the average golfer, the person who's practicing once a week, it's like, I'm not going to change your golf swing. Like I went through that. It took me 10 years to come out on the other side playing horrendous golf, practicing for hours, every day. And like, I know what that looks like. It's awful. And sometimes you don't come out on the other side, right? You hear plenty of stories of golfers who make it to the highest level and they go to make a movement pattern change. And then they're, you never hear from them again. Not always the case, but So I'm very like, I look at golf as it's a skill acquisition. You're trying to skill acquisition. How do you acquire a skill? How do you get better at, like, to me, it's just, can you get the club to hit the ground in the right place, hit the club face in the right place, and then match path and face? Like that's it. And like I had a student come in the other day, and like he was hooking it. He was beautiful golf swing. Everything was awesome. He's hitting the middle of the face. He's hitting the ground in the right place. His path is a little from the inside. He thought he was swinging away from the outside. He's thinking, he's like, oh, am I supposed to do this or that? Or I should be getting some width and like all these. I was like, dude, you're just closing the face too much. So like, I was like, just try and hit the biggest slice ever. And he hits a perfect little draw. And I'm like, do that again. And he does it again. Perfect little draw, perfect little draw. He's like, so all I have to do is close the face less. And I'm like, correct. And he's like, so what am I doing here? I'm like, I don't know. Like, what are you doing here? Let's pull out your driver and see that. He had some issues with the driver, but like, that's what a lot of the lessons look like, is really just like, okay, here's what you're doing. Here's what you're doing good. Everyone's already doing something good, whether it's hitting the ground in the right place or whatever. And then it's just, it's just dialing it in. And then it's getting them to understand. Like, I was listening to Cameron McCormick, Speed's coach. He's like, the magic is in the feedback. So, he's got Trackman up, and he's like, with the you can go out to the range and you can, mess around, whatever, without the feedback. That's great. But the magic is in the feedback. It's knowing exactly where you're hitting the ground, exactly where your face is. Is it 1 degree closed? Is it 2 degrees open? Being able to feel those tiny little things, like Bubba can feel an extra wrap of tape around his grip, right? Like being just so acutely aware of these tiny things. So that's really what golf is when you go down the route of thinking about these, where your club is and what your arm is doing. Like, certainly there's a time and a place for it, but I would argue that if you're practicing once a week, probably not a great path to go down. So I like, for me, I feel like I've probably hurt way more golfers than needed, just because you need something to say online. Like you can't just say like, all you got to do is play around with the face. Like this shot, it's a little close because you can't see ball flight from the video. They're just sending you one tiny, one swing in a sample size of 8 billion. It's like, so that's kind of how I look at it, is like, there's really 4 things. And then to get good at, the next question always is like, okay, well, I did it once out of 20 times. How do I get more consistent? It's like, come back here when I'm not here and put the work in, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you start with you start with a 7-iron, you get really good at 7-iron. Maybe, the first session you get 1 out of 40 right, where you get impact location, low point, path, and face right. Then you come back and maybe you get 5 right. Then you come back, instead of once a week, now you're practicing 3 times a week. And now you get to the point where you're, 20 out of 20 are pretty darn good. Then you start adding, let's go from 7-iron to 9-iron to driver, we got to, now you're shifting low point a little bit further back. So you're hitting further up, shift low point back. Now your path is changing. So do you understand swing direction, low point, path, how those things? So that's kind of how I, without getting too deep into, the numbers, is practicing with good feedback. And every student is, you're on Trackman. Maybe I might just pull up face angle, close the face, open the face. Could you feel that was 7 degrees closed? That feel like, I'll take away all the data and say, all right, hit a shot. What did you feel? They'll say, I guess a number. All right, -3, face is, +9, not even close. Like, all right, so you can't tell the difference between closed and open. Let's try again. And you do it again, make that number bigger. All right, what do you feel? On and on and on and on. And you work with someone for, long enough with that feedback, and every single one of them get better. It's like, it's not a mystery anymore. Like, what makes the ball curve this way or curve that way? We know everything. Right. It's like, it's hammering in their head. Like, this is a skill sport. Skill trumps technique 10 days out of 10. Like, but are you willing to put the work in? Most people aren't. And they don't really know what that process looks like and how long and frustrating it is.
And that's the key too. I would say that the majority of the regular golfers out there, you were talking about practicing once a week. I would venture to say that a lot of them don't even practice once a week. They go play once a week. Maybe,
for sure,
maybe play twice a week, which is fine. I mean, if that's what you want to do too, but you have to manage your expectations there, right? We have a net here in the gym, and I'm totally guilty of just going and banging balls in the net just for the sake of repetition. And just recently I got one of the new Rapsodo, the MLM 2 Pro, and fired it up for the first time. And it's really amazing when you don't have feedback all the time. I would hit a ball and was like, that felt really good, or that, kind of thinking what I thought the ball did.
Yep.
And then you look at the feedback and it's like, no, that's not really what was happening there. And it's like, oh, so me just being down here banging balls, which I still will continue to do, but
sure, it feels great. Just find the middle of the face and whatever, who cares?
but to your point, like, you don't really know what's happening unless you're seeing it, unless you're seeing those stats, and and you have to be willing to go out and put in some work and do what your coach tells you, or find out what you need to do from your coach. Totally right.
Yeah, I mean, I've just found it so fascinating just playing around with the numbers and trying to gamify it. Like, I was reading some study about trying to find, it was like players trying to hit a wedge a certain distance, because a wedge is ultimately a feel shot. It's not just like your 7-iron full swing is going to go on a good one, whatever, 165, 170 yards. Like, you got to find what 50 yards is, whether you're using a clock system or, whatever, it's just a feel. So, the study was like, the students found how to hit 50 yards or 70 yards or whatever it was by first trying to hit one long, trying to hit the next one short, and then finding somewhere in between, right? So it's like pulling up, face angle, just messing around. It's like, be a kid, like pull up face angle and try and spray, give me 10 open, give me 10 closed, give me 7 open, give me 7 closed. And from there, it's just like, it's so much easier to find middle. Give me a super out to in swing. Give me 10 left, give me 10 right, give me 7 left, give me 7 right. Let's see if we can find 0. Hit the toe, hit the heel, hit everywhere but the middle. Like Adam Young, the practice manual, was the first book really that, like, I was like, wow, this makes so much sense. Like, give someone a task, and then they'll let the body self-organize the movement to create the outcome. And Franz Bosch too, like, super interesting stuff. Like, he have you heard the name Franz Bosch? What's the famous, he's got this training, but he's Scandinavian, I want to say like the Netherlands or somewhere over there, Dutch, whatever. He works with like the Dutch national baseball team and rugby and team sports. And like, I don't know how, the book came out a while ago, so I don't know how up to date it is, but like one of the things that he would have students do.
Is it the Anatomy of Agility? Is that the name of the book? That's
probably one of them. He's got there's one, it's a light blue cover. I understood maybe like a tenth of it, as a lot of it is pretty complex, but like if he was trying to get someone to, like, let's say he's like training baseball, trying to get someone to like put more pressure on their front leg. Like, he was just all about like never using verbal cues for anything. Finding ways to get them to do something without telling them how to do it. Right. So like, he would like fatigue their trail leg. He'd have them do like one-legged squats on their right leg and then have them hit a ball. And then like look at what they're doing with their pressure, right? So like, I thought that was just the coolest, most brilliant thing. As like, I kind of went down the route of like, you've got your verbal cues versus like how these conscious thoughts are like weakly strung together things that the brain just won't ever work under pressure. Versus like, I forget all the terminology. I had it all down a couple of years ago, but like, you want to get someone to hit it low, you can tell them, lean the handle forward, lower the dynamic loft, flex your lead wrist, make sure your trail wrist is extended at impact, all these things, all these verbal cues that ultimately just, there's no context, there's no meaning. So under pressure, falls apart every time. That's why everyone sucks at golf. Versus the other way is like, get someone under a tree, have them hit the ball under a tree.
Right.
They don't know what they're doing. They have no clue how they're doing it. You're going to find faster results by telling someone how to do it initially. So like, in an hour lesson, whatever, if you're trying to get someone to do, maybe hit one shot good, like, you can tell them all the things, which is, whatever, they'll be happy, but it'll never work under pressure. Versus the other students, like, you get them, and it's like Harvey Penick style, right? Like Harvey Penick, all his stuff was just so stupid simple. You charge a nickel for a lesson, someone's hitting, like, how I would look at it now, they're hitting too much ground, they're hitting everything fat, right? He'd just say, all right, go brush leaves off of your grass for a week and come back. Give me a nickel, your lesson's over. Like, that's it. And, like, I just thought it was so brilliant. Like, but what he's teaching, like the deeper I looked into it and the more down all these rabbit holes, I went down, it's like, for something really to show up under pressure, you can't really know what you're doing. Right. And that's why like good players are shitty teachers, because they have no clue what they're doing. And that's good. If you want to play really good golf, like you can't know what you're doing. Some people are just blessed with it, right? I was talking to my friend Drew Cooper. I don't know if you follow him. He hits it a billion yards.
1,000 miles.
He was out playing. Just coolest guy ever, and just such a knowledgeable, awesome guy. But he was playing with this guy recently in Arizona, tour pro, can't remember his name, who he said was the most impressive ball striker he's ever played with. And, he was picking his brain, like, what's he working on? And like, where did he learn? And the guy was just like, yeah, I kind of picked up a club when I was young. And like, I guess I had a pretty good swing. And, I'm kind of just kind of doing this, just saying, pretty much saying nothing. Like, I kind of just feel this. And like, literally just, I think, Drew said he went out and shot like 63 or whatever. And every shot he hit, he was mad at. Didn't, everything was inside 20 feet, like 5 birdie looks inside 4 feet. And he was like, that's a whole nother world. But he's like, that guy has no idea what he's doing. And that is why he's able to play so good under pressure. And that's just, it's like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And like, here we all are trying to master the swing. And it's just like, it's a crazy.
Trying to like make it so complex when, obviously you came up from the hockey background. I mean, you never had those kind of thoughts when you're out on the ice, or for me out on the soccer field or playing baseball. And I always think back to, you're talking about the different degrees for the wedge and, that little system, or how to feel it out or whatever. It's like, you never thought about any kind of a system for throwing a ball to the shortstop versus second base, or to, down to home from the outfield. It's like, you just kind of figured it out. You didn't have I got to put my hand 30 degrees back, and then I gotta throw it from this angle and come out to in. It's like, no, you did it so many times that you felt it and you learned how to do it. And that's what I see with the guys that I know personally that have played forever. It's like, they can just go out and they can just sling it, but it's because they've done it a million times.
Yeah. Since they were a kid. And, some people are blessed to have they figure it out really early, and their mechanics are, they're good, they're good enough. And then you do it enough. And then before you know it, you have just no clue. Like, that's, you hear lots like, I don't use my hands in a golf swing. So like, you tell a beginner, like, they're like, oh, someone told me not to use my hands. Like, I had a guy come in the other day. He's like, he's been playing for 4 months, and he'd been to a couple instructors, and, he was told like, he hit a couple shots, and I'm like, I'm trying to figure out like, what information was this guy told? And like, cause like, he's doing some really weird things. And then we started getting into it, and like, his concept of a golf swing was like, for like for an elite player, it's a great feel. It's like, I'm going to rotate, and I'm not going to use my hands. If you've never learned, like, you better use your arms. You better use your hands. You have to learn how to close. You got to learn all these things. So it's so interesting how like, and I think, like, it's interesting as a newer golfer. I think there's like certain fundamentals that just are so different than an elite golfer. And like, what you have to think of is so different than once you get to this point, once you've learned all these things. So it's like, I'm always fascinated teaching someone who's just started teaching. This guy who played pro basketball. He picked up the game like 6 months ago, absolutely obsessed with it. And so it's just like it's always really fun having a good athlete who has no idea what they're doing, and you get to like, form them and instill different concepts and have them watch you, and you exaggerate different things. And like, it's just so fun teaching someone how to play, and just seeing like the pure joy on their face when they hit one. Like, he hit one like 309 yards yesterday, and like just went absolutely nuts. He's out there playing today. Like, it's just so fun.
I was going to ask you, like, with your hockey background, obviously hockey players tend to be pretty good golfers. A lot of the pros that end up going and playing a lot of golf, they tend to smash a ball a mile. Working with some different athletes, I'm sure you've worked with several. Have you found that one type of athlete is a little more prone to playing better golf, like hockey, baseball? I've seen some basketball players' golf swings, and they're not always all that great, but just wondering if you've come across any specific sports that you think have really kind of carried over, or is it more person to person?
I mean, like, obviously you've got Steph Curry, incredible. He's been playing since he was young. And what's interesting too is I can't remember who I was talking to, another basketball player who was, I think it was Damian Lee. I gave him a few lessons. We actually pulled the DryveBox up right in front of his house. He's like, I have no issue with short game or putting. Shooters, like, our hands are awesome. Touch, feel, like, I can, pulls down there, ball breaks left to right. Like, I've got touch all day. You know what I mean? Like the layups, and I can't remember who said it, but it was like, or where I heard it, was like the golf swing is just the culmination of everything you've done up until that point, right? Like it's just a blend of everything. Mm-hmm. And so baseball pitchers are awesome. They're like, I mean, the trail arm, the external rotation, the separation, the slamming the lead foot into the ground, the deceleration, the rotation, like they're just like, to me, the most insane, like what they do with their body to get that ball moving as fast as it does is like the sickest thing ever. Then you get a golf club in their hand. It's just like, whoa. Hockey players are like they create speed very differently. Like you have to have really strong forearms and hands and wrists. And so what I've learned along the way is like wrist grip strength plays a massive role in speed. Being able to, Drew has his next gear golf. So I went through, I was like one of their guinea pigs going through like 3 months of their protocols. And there's a lot of like wrist strength stuff, like kind of taking your hands, like in push-up position, going here, going there, and talking to him about it too. Like he had like a wrist injury. Like when you're whipping that club around your body, you're slowing it. You have to slow it down and then speed it up again. There's so much force that goes into your wrist, and like your brain knows what your body can handle and not. So if you don't have the forearm strength, the hand strength, the grip strength, all that, like you're not going to be able to generate nearly as much speed as the next person. And you wouldn't be able to see it with your eyes either. Like you can't see that force. And it's the same thing with using the ground too. Like you look at Drew's swing, it's like, wow, it looks like he was going at that a little bit. And you look at the club speed, it's like 150 miles an hour. And you just carried at 380. You're like, whoa. And then you look at how much force he's producing at the ground, how hard he's pushing. And it's just like, it's crazy. So like hockey players, really short swings, but we're able to, again, really strong forearms, strong hands, and then being able to dissociate on land, when you're taking a slap shot, like you're on a blade.
Yeah.
So you really have to be good at like that lead ankle. Your ankles are really, really strong. And then everyone knows how to create separation. You're able to rotate the hips crazy open while keeping your chest closed. And then what's interesting, like how every hockey player hits it really low and left. Why? Because a slap shot, the face is pointing down and you're flexing the stick. And that's just like, we've been making that motion forever. Mm-hmm. So like you pick up a golf club and every hockey player for the most part is going to battle a big old snap hook. Right. Like, and then, you've got like the football players are usually really rigid because if they're not, then they're not going to make it. They're going to get their head knocked off. Right. They're going to be injured after one play. So rotation and dissociation is usually really, really difficult for them. So they have a hard time creating speed. Like that's kind of another thing, like in hockey, like you also do have to have a level of rigidity so that like when you get smashed, like you don't fall apart. So like for me, once hockey was over, is I got away from a lot of weightlifting and just like, I was like, my body needed to become a little softer so it could move and rotate a little bit more and become a little spongier. And I don't know how, and like, that was just kind of my feel. I know there's a lot of great research out there now that obviously like if you lift in the right way and keep your mobility up, lifting is obviously great, but it is just so fascinating looking at all the different athletes. And who's good, who's not, and all the different patterns that go into it. Like, I don't know if you saw what's his name, Nadal's golf swing, like exactly like his like his forehand tennis shot. Like it's literally like his backswing goes to about here, but it looks exactly like how he hits a tennis ball. It's the craziest thing.
I'm looking that up as soon as we get off.
It's so cool.
I think, you mentioned like just the different types of athletes. It's very true. Like the football players, and we even had Dr. Stuart McGill on here talking about, he's a spine expert.
Spine doctor, dude, his stuff is awesome.
Yeah, and he talks about how if you're playing, sports like that, you need to lift heavy and build rigidity in your spine. But if you're a golfer, you need that elasticity, and you need to be able to move. And so everything that you just said, like about the pitchers and the hockey players almost being a little bit of a cross between the two, makes it a ton of sense. And as to why, for some guys like the football players, if they're getting into the golf world, they need to do a little bit more like what you did. And that's, work on, you got to be able to move and rotate and try to regain some of that. And in other sports, you might have to build up a little bit more strength and resilience and rigidity because you've gone the other way. That's a great point.
Yeah, it's so fun to just get into all that stuff. I was talking to Drew too about like, because he's got a background in exercise science, and so like it's just so fun to talks about the like you can do you can lift really heavy and slower, and then you can obviously lift lighter and faster, and so kind of like looking at what every person needs. Which do you need more of to kind of find that, like, because so many people that are into speed now, which is so cool. Just the long drive thing, which I'm also kind of surprised hasn't taken off as much over the years, but it's so cool seeing like all the different types of athletes that are getting into the long drive stuff and that are out there just to hit the ball as far as humanly possible. That Seb Waddell guy, the double pump guy, I don't know if you've seen him.
Yeah. I mean, just crazy
awesome.
Swing speed, ball speed. It's
like we swing like 160 now. Man.
Now your boy Drew though, like watching him, he's just got a beautiful golf swing, and then it's just to see how far the ball is going, how fast that club. You're like, really? It didn't look like he put that much effort into it, and it's just smashed. It's awesome.
He would be an awesome guy to have on the podcast. You guys would have an awesome talk. And he's just the coolest dude ever.
Oh, I would love to have him on.
I'm happy to connect you guys too.
Yeah.
Because he can go into all of it. Like he's just got, because he grew up playing, but he's got all the background of like, what I love about picking his brain is like so much information that I've kind of found along the way, like, which is awesome. Like you've got like kind of the old school guys, which is all like, what do they feel? Which I think is very valuable, like insanely valuable, but is also kind of fleeting. It's not really what's happening. And I still feel like there's like in the golf world, like everyone looks at golf like this like mysterious, like magical thing that like it's not a sport. It's like it's living in this own world over here of like make believe, like whatever. It's like, but in reality, it's like it's just like anything else. It's like it's a physical movement that like there are laws that govern these things, rotation, torque, and how to create and do these things right. That like it's just really cool picking someone's brain who kind of has the like both of those, the golf skill but also the knowledge of like the gnarly exercise science stuff that I know little about, always learning, and then being able to also execute it and then talk about all that. So anyways, great guy.
That's what's fascinating. He then does it out there on the course. You can see him putting it all into action, right? It's cool.
And does it really, really well too, and it's fun to watch.
All right, man. Just a couple questions to finish us out here. I know last time we had you on, we asked you all of our kind of typical ones, so I got a couple random ones that came from some of our crew. First one is, what does Jake Hutt listen to most out on the golf course? I assume you're a music on the course kind of guy.
And absolutely.
And if so, who are some of the artists that you've listened to the most recently?
Oh man, I mean, I love soul, hip hop. I'll also, I mean, the boring answer is everything. I'll say like my favorite, if it's like a not sunny summer day outside, like I don't even know if I'm saying this right. Krungabin. Have you heard of Krungabin?
No.
I don't even know how to spell it. There's like 8,000 letters in this band, but it's like it's like vibey stoner hippie music. It's kind of like got some country vibes. It's like it's so relaxing. That's like a fun outlandish one that if you've never heard of it, they're awesome.
All right, we'll figure out how to spell that. We'll throw that one in the show notes. All right, I want Jake Hutt to define the word dusty.
Oh, dusty. God, it can mean absolutely anything. It can be good. It can be bad. It's all about, it's kind of like I was just watching, what's that movie? Donnie Brasco. And they're in Johnny Depp is trying to define forget about it.
Yep.
Right? When like he puts it into all these, like, he's like, it can forget about it can be this, and then different tone can be that. It can also be this. It can also be that. So like it started out, I mean, it's a hockey term, right? Dusty is like it's been used forever. I definitely didn't make it up. Dusty is like, I guess the technical dusty word, which isn't a word at all, is just means like it's bad. It sucks. Like that person that like that sticker, that parrot, look at how dusty that is. Like it's not good, but it's evolved. Like the podcast that I did, it's taken on so many forms. It can mean anything. It's just about how you use it and the tone you use it in.
I love it. I'm learning so many new words with my son being in high school. There's so much new vernacular the greatest thing in the world is if you ever become a parent, all the dads and moms listening will appreciate this, is learning the new words and then purposefully using them incorrectly in front of your kids, especially at the dinner table. It just grinds their teeth. You know, it's one of the things I live for these days.
That's awesome. What's one of the words coming up now? I heard like Riz. Is Riz one?
Riz is one.
Have you heard that one?
Yeah.
What
Riz
is that
is
one?
It kind of means, I think it comes from charisma. You know, like that guy's got Riz.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. And
they're getting real creative with it.
Yeah. What's another one? I still don't totally understand this one, but cap and no cap, like no cap means like I'm not lying, or like cap.
It's like exclamation point, isn't it? It's kind of like, it's like,
I guess so. I don't know. No, we'll have Sam define all of these, but yeah, there's oh yeah. And then sus, of course, is one.
Oh, sus. Yep. I remember hearing that one for the first time. Man, that's like, man, I'm old.
Yeah, exactly. Well, imagine having a teenage kid. That's how you end up feeling. All right, last one here. What's the sickest course that you've played this year? And then what's one course, maybe off the radar course, that you want to get to?
Let's see. Lake Merced just got redone out here in San Francisco, and I absolutely love that golf course. That's been my favorite one this year, definitely. And then let's see, pretty standard rotation out here. When I travel, I don't get to play a whole lot of golf. Like I'm like the least traveled golfer ever. I haven't played in very many states. I've played all the courses here in California. So Karika, there's north and south, public golf course, Australian sandbelt style golf. Lots of like not the prettiest course ever, but it's just a different style course out here. And they didn't finish the back 9 of the North course. So it's just 9 holes and you can only walk. And it's just like it's just a fun vibe out here. At most courses out here, lots of trees. This is just kind of a fun where you just go and you just walk around and like, there aren't any carts out there. You just got kind of vibe to it. So I'll say Karika North. I could say Stanford. I played Stanford is a great kind of hidden gem out here that I don't think a lot of people have played or maybe even heard about or know about. Like on the higher end, Stanford is incredible. It's an incredible shape. They hired the superintendent from the course they play that used to be the Safeway Open. Now it's some security Fortinet.
Oh yeah.
I think the first tournament of the year. So they hired that superintendent. He just like the course is just in immaculate condition. So that maybe one that flies a little bit more under the radar. Awesome course. So maybe those 3.
Sweet. And is there a place that's on your list if you do get a chance to travel? Like say we had the 18 strong jet fueled up, ready to go. Where's Jake going?
God, I probably wouldn't go for any of the obvious ones. Like you get like Pine Valley sounds pretty cool. I feel like that's an obvious one too. And like, I don't care about playing Augusta. That's too obvious. I love like Torrey on a nice day is just like the most beautiful place ever. It's got a relaxing vibe. Like maybe don't have to wear a collared shirt out there. Honest, like, I don't know, maybe somewhere in Hawaii. I've got a good friend of mine who's a pro out there in Hawaii at Ko'olina, and he keeps telling me about these insane courses I've never heard of. So I might just fly over there and meet up with him and just have him take me to one of those courses, whichever ones those are. I'm not like a massive like course architect nerd, so like I still have some learning to do on that end. So I'm just gonna go to Hawaii and I'll figure out somewhere fun to play out there, wherever that is.
Can't imagine many prettier views than off of one of those islands.
I know,
that's
right?
Sure.
Special.
Awesome. All right, my man. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to come on. It's always great hanging with you. And I know you're going to continue putting out a ton of content. Hopefully we'll be seeing a DryveBox here in St. Louis one of these days. And,
yes, absolutely.
If
you know anyone, send them our way.
I will for sure, man. Thanks again for coming on, and we'll talk to you soon.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. This was a blast. Happy to do it anytime. If there's anything I can do to help, let me know.
All right, brother. All right, thanks for joining us this week on the 18 Strong podcast with Jake Hutt. If you want any more information on Jake or DryveBox, or you're looking to maybe franchise one of those DryveBoxes, just go to 18strong.com. This is episode number 352. We'll have all the information there in the show notes. So check up again with us next week. We'll have another great guest. Train hard, practice smart, and play better golf.